Do you remember that sim update number 2 beta 1490 was released already a few days ago and that we observed some changes which were not called out in the release notes? There's some good news because they have been updated. Let's roll the intro and then let's look at the details. So a few minutes ago I observed that they update the release notes, and to see them you need to scroll down to the bottom of the list of the previous ones, and there you will find a new set. Some of them I've already discussed in a separate video, especially the one about the EFB, the Electronic Flight Bag Flight Planner, which contains a lot of amazing issues. For the ATC, it's only, let's say, fixes, right? Fixes where it didn't know about the speed constraints, but also it said FL instead of flight level. There were issues with the IFR clearance, which could include an SID that didn't match the active runway, as well as repeated altitude vectors while waiting for a response to an expected approach. Besides that, there were some improvements for awkward pauses, pronunciations of procedure names and transitions, as well as the controller will now speak the full runway position. For example, 27L is now called out 27 left. I still see some issues with the ATC, especially that it is repeating or it's losing the, let's say, kind of control. But I'd say if I look at it, it's not really an ATC issue, but more maybe a pilot issue where it keeps requesting, I'd say, for a new clearance. And that continues to go on, and after one point you are not able to respond anymore to the ATC, and then you will be disconnected, of course. They will say, hey, flight services discontinued, and then you will need to request the clearance again. Besides that, there are some improvements for the handling of the nav data that for runways that do not exist in the sim. So what they have added as resolution, which is now only done after all the scenery layers are loaded. So only transitions will be removed rather than full procedures where possible. Then the electronic flight bag. This one contains some fixes. For example, the user waypoint idents were being overwritten when imported from a flight plan, as well as the cruise altitudes were mismatching between the flight planner app, the PLN files, and the ATC clearance. And the last one, an issue where the user waypoint altitudes were being misinterpreted using the wrong units when importing a flight plan. Besides that, there are tons of things added, right? Added a recenter button. They also updated the meter and TAF data. It's now updated every 5 minutes. And also a lot of other cool stuff like adding a split screen, a new feature to enter or edit a route string to import a route, and also things to change the departure or arrival runways, list the waypoints, more data being available, departure and arrival procedure selections to auto routing, airway names in the en-route waypoint list, and a lot of other cool stuff. And if you're interested, there's a video I posted about this, so have a look at the video and then you will see all those things live in sim update number 2 beta number 2. Then besides that, there are some I would say SDK fixes, but as always we're not gonna go to them. But for the developers there's also some good news because there are some more things. However, I also observed that there were some more fixes which were below this one, right? So this makes it really confusing. And that's the Avionics. It's the G1000 NXI where they fixed issues where the region text for some airports were not displayed, as well as the elevation for some airports was not displayed. And there was an issue where the syncing of the airway segments in the flight plan to the EFB was not working 100% correctly. Then, based on the feedback, they also adjusted the screen backlight auto adjustment to use ambient light. And there is something which they fixed in receiving a flight plan from the EFB. The RMP AR approaches are no longer loaded, right? So it looks like this is fixed, but it's not, let's say, specifically mentioned. Then for the G3000 and 5000, there are things being fixed, but also being added. For example, the barometric transition alert function has been added, as well as support for electronic charts. By default, the Lido and FAA charts are supported, which is good. Then loading procedure into the flight plan will now pull the correct type, right? 80, 80 or above, 80 or below, and the speed restrictions from the published procedures, which will also be imported, which is kind of cool. Then the set AP current heading key event now interacts properly with the Garmin Autopilot's heading sync option that didn't work. And besides that, there are a lot of fixes for the PFD, the cache messages, right, which were those warning messages. That's now being fixed, as well as the HSI indications when LNAV is tracking a heading lag. And they fixed an issue where a long procedure name text in the GTC procedure page could sometimes wrap and overflow its containing a button. That's also what I observed recently. So kind of cool fixes. You can see some repetition of the fixes, but it's good that they made those fixes. Then, since they were probably really busy, they also fixed a lot of things in the G3X Touch. And here I won't go to all of them because most of them are, I would say, also fixed or added as part of the previous ones. You will see some specific fixes like this one, like the EGT readout in the IS to show the correct value, as well as this one. By default, the G3X will now use a fuel density report by the fuel weight per gallon SIMVAR. That's now being fixed. This one also specifically where the radio didn't work 100% correctly, as well as adjusting the style of the PFD has been adjusted. So kind of nice things for the G3X Touch also. Then the GNS 430W and the 530W. Most of the fixes which were in the previous ones also are here, right? Only 2 of them are applicable to this one, so not too many. Then the working title 21, they made some fixes and they added support. First of all, they added support for the electronic checklist, which you can also view in the WT21, kind of a hard word, right? And they fixed the excessive turn radius for approach and missed approach lags. They fixed an issue when sending the flight plan to the Avionics. And they fixed an issue where the flight plan would desync between the left and right FMCs and MFDs. Then the Primus EPIC2 also received some fixes. First of all, they added the vertical situation display with full display of VNAV path for descents, including top of descent and top of climb markers. The correct turn radius is now being displayed, as well as the SID and star selection buttons will now also enable if the pending flight has a selection, origin or destination. Then the UNS1, only the turn radius has been fixed. Then the GTN 650 also received some updates. They added compatibility with the EFB send route to and request route from Avionics features. This has mainly to do with the EFB, right? So from the EFB, you can now send the flight plan directly to the GTN. What I observed is that in most cases, you first need to be in the aircraft and then hit the send to Avionics again, and then it will receive the, let's say, flight plan. If you do it while you are in the world map, then it might not send it to the Avionics correctly. Last one, the 737 MAX 8. Tons of fixes also for that, but also some new functionality. This one, they added automatic loading of the airport transition altitude and level, as well as they implemented the 737 specific climate descent speed restrictions field logic. Other than that, they fixed the autopilot altitude capturing, they correct the turn radius, as well as they adjust the warnings on the engine indications during the startup, and they enhanced the bout rotor motor logic during the startup phase. So kind of cool fixes, which you already, I would say, are using. Maybe you've observed them, maybe not, but it still is cool. So now the question is, of course, when will the next build be released? Well, let's wait, but maybe it's this week. Keep an eye on my channel, because if there's a new build, I will definitely post it on my channel and walk you through the release notes. Thanks for watching and see you next video.